Polynomials. The definition of polynomial, poly means many, okay? Many terms. So polynomial is going to be at the sum of many terms. Now I'll tell you what the terms are in a little bit, but what I want you to know right now is how to recognize whether something is a polynomial or not. Now there are going to be different kinds of polynomials, but please believe me, this is going to be okay. You're okay. So it's easier to explain what polynomials are not if any of the terms in the polynomial have a radical. It is not a polynomial. You cannot have any negative exponents, no variables, that's the letters, no variables in the denominator, that's the bottom of a fraction. So no variables in the bottom of a fraction, and no fractional exponents, something to the 1/5, something to the 1/3, okay? Because fractional exponents actually turn into radicals. So these tell you what is not a polynomial. You'll get used to polynomials very quickly. Okay, Mary, do you have those down?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take these off if you've got the list, because the first page in our, oh, I want to tell you guys, yesterday we were finishing up that packet yesterday, and I said today we were going to do pages 7 and 8. Wasn't that right? 7 and 8. Mm-hmm. And as I looked at page 7 and 8, I decided that you're not going to need them at all for the GED. So we're going to omit those out of the package. It's fine if you just take them out and throw them away if you want. Okay, we're not going to do that. We're going to start on polynomials. Now, the first page that we're going to look at, all you have to do is decide on this page which of these are polynomials and which aren't. Now, on the answer sheet, they say not a polynomial. You can say yes or no on the line if you want to. So let's look at number 1, and I'm just going to show you on the screen rather than write it. We're going to decide whether this is, yes, a polynomial or not. Number 1. What do y'all think? No. Why?
Because it's got the -4.
The negative exponent, -4. Negative exponent makes it not a polynomial. Let's go ahead and look at number 2. Okay, number 2 is a cross. Are you looking down?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, number 2 is a cross. So is this a polynomial?
Yes.
Yes, I don't see anything that disqualifies it. Okay, let's look at number 3. Not, because it's got the radical on the square root of 7, so that disqualifies it. So you all understand that? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, terms. Terms are easy to look at also. Look at this. 7uv minus 5uvw plus 6v to the 4th. This is an example of a polynomial, and it is qualified as a polynomial. Now you're going to understand terms quickly because the terms are going to be separated by a plus or a minus. Okay, so here is a term. The one thing that I want to make sure that you're aware of is include the sign. Since there's nothing here, that's a positive. This term and this sign go together. So it's a -5 of these. And this is a term, a positive 6v to the 4th. Y'all see how we do terms? It's got 3 terms. Okay, we're going to name our polynomials by how many terms they have in just a little bit. But I want to talk to you about common terms now, common terms. And we've done this before in quite a bit of problems that we've done when we had the 6x squared or 7x squared plus 6yz. We found out that we couldn't add 7 and 6 because these were not the same. If they were the same, they would be common terms. Okay, now here and here are common terms, and those can be combined into 6x squared because this x squared and this x squared are what we call common terms. And anytime we have common terms, we can combine those into one. But this is not a common term, so it can't be added into these. Are we okay with common terms and how to pick out how many terms? The big thing is here, make sure that the sign comes with the term. Are we okay with this?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now we're going to talk about degree of a polynomial. The degree of a polynomial, I'm going to use the same one. And I'm sure I will get to remind you of these things, but they're not deep. It's not a really hard situation. Okay, now the degree of a polynomial comes from the exponents on the variable, the degree of the polynomial. So the degree of this has a 1 on it. If there's not an exponent showing, there's always a 1, right? Yes?
Mm-hmm.
So they add the exponents in this term only, and the degree here is 2. Degree has to do with the exponents. Everybody okay? Here, there's 1, 2, and 1, okay? So the degree of this term by itself is 3. The degree here is 4, okay? So if we ask you what the degree of the entire polynomial is, it's the largest one. So the degree of this entire polynomial is not these added together, it's simply the largest one. So the degree of this polynomial here is 4. Which brings us to standard form. If we're going to put our polynomial into standard form, we will put it in order according to the degree. So I'm going to look at each term in my polynomial, and I'm going to say this one has the biggest degree, so I'm going to write this one first. This is putting a polynomial in standard form. It's a positive, so it's a positive. Then the next biggest one is here, so it's minus 5u v w. And then, of course, the smallest degree is a plus 7u v. This is standard form because we list them in order from the largest degree to the smallest.
And when you're doing the standard form, will it always be like the largest minus the next one?
No, it's whatever. See, the next largest one was this term, and this was the sign that went with it. So it's either a negative or a minus. So you can't just say 5. It's a negative 5. So when you put it here, just a minus 5. Not in this one. You could do this. Would that be better? This is the same thing. But I write down the first one, and it had the plus, so we don't put it on the front. And then I'm ready to write down the second one, so I have to write the minus or negative sign with it. Does it make more sense? I'm really glad you asked questions. Standard form. So now we have this polynomial in standard form. So we're going to ask you things about this. This takes us to just about everything we're doing today already, except for the names. So the things they will ask you will have to do with standard form. So make sure that your polynomial is put in standard form before you start answering questions, okay? Now, the first one that they'll ask is how many terms? How many terms are there in this polynomial? Oh, I have some. How many terms are in that polynomial?
2.
Try again.
3.
1, 2, 3. Do you see this is 1, this is 1, and this is 1. The terms are separated by pluses and minuses. So it doesn't matter how many letters are here. All of this goes together if it's multiplied, if it's crammed together. It's all a term.
I don't understand this stuff, right? Because that plus 6v4 has a plus sign in front of it originally. So if it didn't have it on the board, that's why I wasn't counting it as a.
It will never show if it's the first one. The only sign it will show if it's the first term is if it's a negative. If it doesn't have one, you assume or you know that it's positive.
Okay.
That's one of those invisible understood things. Okay, good. These things help me teach so well. Then they will probably ask you what the name is according to terms, and we're going to do that in a minute. I'll list those for you. And then the next one, they will ask, what is the degree of this polynomial? What is the degree? And the entire polynomial, the degree is the largest exponent. Well, we've already put them in order of the largest. This is 4, this is 1, 2, 3, and this is 2. So the degree of this polynomial is the largest one. So you will simply say the degree is 4 of this polynomial. It's the largest degree. Okay? And then they will ask you, I'm going to put it over here because then I'm going to come ask you a question there. Coefficients. They will ask you, what are all the coefficients? Coefficients. And this simply means the numbers that are in front of the variable. So the coefficients, either place, are a 6, a -5, and a +7. Those are the coefficients. Coefficients are simply the numbers that are in front of the variables. They do not include the variables, but they do include the sign that goes with them. So this one is a -5. This one is a 7. This one's a +6.
I'm confused.
I see a question. Okay.
If it's got the positive and negatives in front of the coefficient,
Yes.
why are we not bringing it down and marking it?
I think we are.
It's just that we just know.
I'm not sure if I'm following your line of questioning. Because what I'm doing now, I'm trying to just list Well, I'm just listing them. I'm not putting them in a long plus, minus, blah, blah, blah. I'm just naming what are all the coefficients. And the only reason we're doing that is so that you know what a coefficient is. The coefficient is the number that's in front of the variable, the number that's in front of the variable. Yes? Eh? Eh, okay. And then I think they'll just ask you, they'll ask you a name according to the degree, and I'll give you a list of those in a minute. They'll ask you how many terms and what's the name for the polynomial, what do they call it? According to the terms. And then what's the name according to the degree of the polynomial. So actually, you know, they may ask them separate for a while on your worksheets, but every polynomial is going to have two names. They'll have one according to how many terms there are and one the degree. And I will show those in a minute. Okay, so the last main thing they want to know about polynomials now is the leading coefficient. Try to write that. Hi, Shaniqua.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Okay, they want to know the leading coefficient. And I bet you could almost figure out what it is because we know all the coefficients. And when it's in standard form, it's going to be the one in the lead. So our leading coefficient is 6. That's all they want to know. Make sure it's in standard form before you do it. Because the leading coefficient in our original is 7, and that's not the correct answer. Has to be in standard form. So probably to be safe is to figure out all the degrees, put it in standard form before you start answering questions. Sound good?
Yes.
I'm going to give you the last piece of information, which is the names by degree and the names by terms. And then let's look at the worksheet and see if I've left anything out today. You good? Has everybody got this information? Because I'm going to have room. All right.
Yeah.
Those of you remotely, if you did not get any of this information, it will be on YouTube. My channel is Deborah Bond, and it will be posted after we're through here today. And remote students, if you need any of these pages, be sure and let me know, and I'll send those to you. And Shaniqua, I don't know if you heard, but the page 7 and 8 of the scientific notation packet, we decided to omit those. I don't think you're going to need those. All right.
I don't think I have that.
I hear you talking, but I'm not sure what you're saying. Say it again, Shaniqua.
I don't think that I have that.
Okay. I have them printed out for the in-class students, but I did send them in the email a couple of days ago, or was it last week?
I was in class last week.
I'll be glad to send that to you again if you'd like for me to after this. Will that work?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'll send the scientific notation and today's stuff. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So if they ask you, they're going to ask you to classify by. Okay, now, there's 2 different ways you can classify by. You can classify by term. So if there's only one term called a monomial. Now you can remember these because mono means one. Monomial, okay? One term. There are two terms. You can remember it like bicycle, okay? Binomial. Bi means two. Like a tricycle, it's a trinomial because it has three terms. Now, after that, I think there are proper names, but what we use and what I think they're using on your worksheets are just polynomial with this many terms, polynomial with this many terms. So from here on, it's going to be polynomial with four terms is what you'll say. So you only really have to memorize three of them. And those are pretty easy. Mono means one, bi means two, tri means three. Okay? That's classifying by terms. Now, just like I said, all the polynomials will have two names, and this is by degree. So after you decide what the degree of your polynomial is, if the degree is actually 0, that means there's no variables in the whole polynomial, then it will be called a constant. That means there's not a degree, there's not a variable, nothing. Just had a brain fart. Degree. 1. Okay, yeah. My brain just stopped. It's called linear. If the degree is 1, the largest degree in the polynomial is 1, it's called linear. If the largest degree is 2, it's called a quadratic. You'll get used to this word because we're going to do a lot with quadratics. It is a quadratic. Now, don't let this confuse you because quad sounds like 4, but a quadratic is if the degree is 2, it just is. Okay? If the degree is 3, it's called a cubic. If it's 4, it's called a quartic. And 5, it's called a quintic. These are most likely the only ones that you're going to need to know. These are the normal ones. Put this up so everybody can see. If you are asked to classify your polynomial, if they say classify by term, here's your list. If they say classify by degree, here's your list. And there is a worksheet in this packet that says, give me both names. So you'll have to look at how many terms and how many degrees, and then you will make your combination name for that polynomial. So you've got a list to look at. Do y'all have this, those of you remotely?
Yes.
Okay. So on the page 2 in your packet, it simply says to list the terms. So you're just going to have whatever the first term is, comma, second term, comma, third term. You're just going to list what the terms are. Remember to include the sign on those. Page 3, let's see if I'm covered everything. This is where they're dealing with like and unlike terms. Like and unlike terms. And it says to circle all of the terms that are alike. Now this number 1, look at number 1. It's a little bit confusing because it all has X, Y, Z's, but you must be very, very careful because the squareds are on different things all the way through. So I see the X, Y squared Z. Compare it with the next one. The X is squared here, so that's not a common term. There's an X, Y squared Z. The fourth one, nope. But the fifth one, again, is an X, Y squared Z. So the ones that are X's, Y squared Z's are the ones that you would circle. The others are not common terms. They want you to get used to looking very closely and make sure that the terms match. The numbers in front, the coefficients in front, don't matter on common terms, just the variables. So you should have 3 of them circled. The first, the third, and the fifth one should be the common terms. The letters have to match exactly. Then halfway down, they change and they say, tell me all of them that aren't alike. So I think what I would do is look for the like terms, which is the first one. Well, here's the fourth one, second, and first one are all C's. So on this one, you're circling the unlike terms. So you would circle the CD and the C squared D because they don't match everything else. Do you see? So be sure and read the instructions. They switched on you, okay? The first one is circle the like ones and the next one is circle the unlike ones. Okay. The next page, we're on page 4. And it's asking you to take this and put it in standard form. So what you'll need to do is decide the degree of each term. I'm on page 4. Are you with us, Rennie?
Yeah.
Okay. So the 6p cubed, what's the degree of that term? 3. What's the degree of the next term? 4. Do you see the Q has a 1 on it? So you might start always going through first and putting a 1 on everything that doesn't have an exponent. So the p cubed Q, that term, the degree is 4 because the Q has a 1 on it. Then the next term, Q to the 5th, what's the degree there? 5. Now look at the 7. You need to talk about the degree. So the 7 doesn't even have a variable. So the degree for that is going to be 0. It's important to understand that there is a degree of 0. Okay, there's no variable. And then the last, yes, ma'am. And that's a constant. Okay, and then the last one, what's the degree of the QR? 2, because there's a 1 on the Q and a 1 on the R. So the degree there is 2. Then you will put this in order according to the largest degree, next largest degree, next largest degree, all the way down to the 7 will be the last one. Constants go last. Constants go last because their degree is 0. Do you understand what you're going to do on this page? Okay. Any questions there, Shaniqua, Mary?
No.
This is my first time seeing this.
I didn't hear that one.
That's my first time seeing that.
Yes, yes. And you can go back and look at the YouTube as soon as I post it if you need things repeated, okay? And I'll be sending you this immediately after we get finished, Okay. Now here's the answer to that first one. Did you put it in order?
I hope I did.
Okay, it should be q to the 5th minus p cubed q plus 6p cubed minus qr plus 7. Okay, well, answers on the back, and so we'll look at those and see what happened, okay? Let's move to the next page because I think you have enough to do this entire packet. Then we'll move to packet 2 tomorrow. All right, this one has a chart for you, and it gives you a polynomial right here. Now, it may or may not be in standard form. So my suggestion, it doesn't give you any box in here where it says to write it in standard form. So underneath here in the box, I would make sure that this is written in standard form before you start. Okay? So always check to see if it's in standard form. This one is not. Because notice that the 4 has a degree of 0. So it always goes last. So make sure that your polynomial is in standard form first before you answer all the other questions. By the time you put it in standard form, you will know what the degree is. And then match that degree with its name. We classify by degree. They say name by degree, same thing. The leading coefficient we talked about is the coefficient that's in front when we have it in standard form. Counting the terms and matching that with its name is what you're going to be doing in this, on this page. Any questions on it until you get started? You understand that you have all the notes for it. Okay, and here again, page 6. We're on page 6. This is multiple choice. And I noticed on these that there is not just one choice. It says identify the algebraic expressions which are not polynomials. Pick those out for me, okay? Is A a polynomial? No. What about B? Yes, so you won't circle that one. C, let me see it close. Okay, is C a polynomial? Why? Negative exponent, so it is not. So you'll circle C. What about D? Yes, it is. E, why? Negative exponent again. And F? No, because it has a variable in the denominator. So you would be circling A, C, and F. Is that correct? E. Oh, yes, and E, because it has that negative exponent. Any questions, remote people? I'm assuming we're okay. Mary?
I'm fine, Ms. Zara.
Okay, Shaniqua?
I'm just listening. Like I said.
Okay.
So
All right.
Can you send me that package, Ms. Zara?
Oh, yeah, because you would get the pack here, right? I will do that.
Please.
Okay, now on this one, I want you to underline in the instructions, you're going to classify this, which means give me the name, but see where it says number of terms. So underline the word terms, because all the names on this page are going to be according to the number of terms. So you're going to take that from the term list. The next page, you'll underline degree, because you'll only be using the degree names. See it? So underline degree so you know which words you're going to be using here. See the instructions? Classify by degree. So you're going to use the degree list. Then I think the next one, yes, you give them both names. On the next page, which is page 9, it says based on degree and terms. So every one of these answers will have both names, the degree and the degree and the term name on this page 9. And I think that's the last one. Are there questions? Not yet. There will always be questions after you start, but I think you have enough information to get yourself acquainted with polynomials. Tomorrow, we're going to add and subtract polynomials, but all it entails is finding the common terms. So we won't be learning anything particularly new. We will learn how to use what we learned today. Okay? What do you all think, girls?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, well, I am finished today with the recording